If you don't have a war room in your organization to help you get the strategy from the top floor to the shop floor and help you drive a culture of continuous improvement, you're missing a key tool in your continuous improvement arsenal. Now, if you don't know what a war room is, you're definitely going to want to watch this episode. And if you do know what a war room is, I think you're still going to have something to learn from Sharon's experience in deploying the business strategy from the top floor to the shop floor. If you like the video, make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is Mic Drop, Insights and Lessons from CI Thought Leaders. Stay tuned for Sharon's interview.
The kinds of things that you do in your business to shape that engaged culture. And that's where the strategy deployment piece is a huge one in that formula. And I often see the strategy stay with the senior management, maybe go one level down, and then everybody else is just told.
No, and I'm a big advocate for, and I use the term top floor to shop floor, right? That's a term I use. And what I'm hearing you saying is, you need to be able to take that top level strategy and deploy it into initiatives and deploy it into actionable items, and then be able to measure on the shop floor how you're doing against those so that connection happens, which is your daily huddles. What are some of the strategies, the actions that you've had for that strategy deployment?
So I worked in improvement as a facilitator, and then I took over director of continuous improvement in around the 2011 timeframe. So 2007 to 2011, I was facilitating. It was drinking from a fire hose. I was like learning everywhere. I had awesome mentors in the Vector Aerospace group. And then I took over the director's role, but I found that 2 years later, I was at Lean MRO days in the south of France on the Airbus campus. They were talking about war rooms. The leader of the workshop on war rooms, what he described, and then when we toured the facility and I saw war rooms, none of it was really matching up with what this lean expert was describing. And he talked about a war room in terms of one wall says, how are our teams performing? One wall says, how is our business performing? And the third wall says, what are we doing about any gaps to performance, or what are we doing about strategy? So I remember calling the president at the time and I said, Jeff, can I build a war room, like a real war room? And he's like, he was one of those leaders, high trust leader. And he said, what do you need? And I said, well, I need about 6 months of being able to dedicate myself to this. And I need to, have some talent that I can put on the team. Okay. So, and it just so happened that we were building a new training room at the time, which we were easily able to say, okay, that's going to become our war room. And we wallpapered it with the magnetic whiteboard. So we set up a team, and it was really about, okay, so if we were going to do strategy deployment and do it really well, we need to go back to basics with the data room. So we created 4 dashboards for cycle 0. So our sales cycle, and then our cycle 1, which is when you tear down an engine and you bring it back to give the quote to the customer, how much it's going to cost. So that's cycle 1. Our material was cycle 2, and then rebuild the engine is cycle 3 and get it back to the customer. So we built dashboards that would show lead times, tack times, rework, flow.
I remember
flow,
seeing it.
Inventory. Oh, you saw that room.
Yeah.
So that was but I didn't know at the time how valuable that was going to be. It's really nice to see the performance, but what it did is it drove alignment throughout the business, because it forced us to say, there's only one way to measure this from now on. So we're going to get real tight on the definition. It drove us to go back and improve some processes where we were accepting of some of the outliers before. Now we were able to, learn how to live with that and improve that. And then we built our balanced scorecard on a touchscreen big TV, and we were able to drill down levels on data that might have been not performing. But then on the other wall, we built the strategy deployment system. So we visualized, so we used the Hoshin Cannery, but we used it in a different methodology where we created a card for the senior level leadership, the corporate team down to our team. That was our L1 leadership card. And so it had, our mission and what are all those top level, high level. And then we cascaded it out to every team. So then you could see then not only would the performance objectives of all of the employees fall out of that, because they would, and just a cycle of problem solving activities depending on the size. So if you think about, Art Smalley's 4 levels of problems, the fix and contain, and the gap to performance, and then the target setting, and then the hot and innovative high strategic projects, that's kind of how we shape those. But when we walked our employees through, because every single employee got walked through with their teams through that to help them understand their piece and their contribution of, and they became more systems thinkers, and they also got confidence as to why they were being asked to cross train. Then we equipped the business with a really smooth suggestion system. It was all problem solving based. What problem are you trying to solve? What impact is this going to have on the business? And depending on the scale of that, it stayed with the supervisor or it got escalated and created strategic projects. So it was a really, really nice synergy to reset. The data became so reliable through that. And all of the leadership started talking the same language. But I talk about cultural artifacts because the cultural artifacts that have to support that type of thinking, monthly leadership meetings, where we would take our balance scorecard and our SQDCP metrics, and we would say, here's it at the high level, here's how we did this month. And the leadership all come in once a month, and we had multiple people participate in that. But then that would go out to every shop floor team. And then all of the other, like the reward and recognition, the training that supported that war room made the accountability structure clear, because if it wasn't moving, everybody knew it. If a project stalled, it was visible to everyone. And and then we would ask, why did it stall? Are we not supporting it? Are we not giving it the right resources? Is it as important as we thought? We didn't necessarily blame the project team. We would, really delve into
why.
Explore the why. Yeah.
No, I remember first time I saw that war room. Well, what caught me was the fact that it had war room right on the door. It said war room, I remember. And I went in and I looked and I was impressed with the level of information that was being captured from the highest level. You can tell the quality and the effort that goes into every single aspect of the business to make it the most effective and the highest possible quality product. The safety, all the standards associated with that, but also those metrics that you were talking about. I was extremely impressed, and I knew that there was a lot of work that went into making that happen.
Well,
but you could feel that on the floor too. I remember when I was on the floor and you're talking to the staff, and there was a mindset in the organization as to why it existed and what everybody's role was.
We did the lean maturity assessments. A lot of companies don't want to invest in that because it's long-term thinking. It does solve problems right away, but it requires your senior team to learn about all the different aspects. So we took the Boeing assessment and we said, okay, so how are we going to take this thinking and apply it to all of Vector Aerospace? So we created our own Vector Aerospace lean maturity assessment. And that drove us. And that's the reason why we built the war room, because when I looked at strategy deployment in there and I looked at data availability and the utilization and the visualization of data, we would never achieve a 5 if we kept doing what we were doing, which was world class. We combined our 5S efforts and our visual management into one category, because really the 5S efforts are about making the workplace so visual that you can spot problems easily. You were Googling lean maturity models, and we just built the best one that we felt that we could utilize. It became a KPI for every senior management team to improve your score year over year. So in order to do that, you had to do presentations for all of your improvement work to the peers in the other Vector divisions. We were learning from each other that way. Every time they would come here, the teams would come here, or we go to Vancouver, we go to the UK, we would benchmark with other companies. So like we got to go to, Toyota D-side engine plant in Wales and look to see what they're doing. And if you want to see a war room, that is a standard of a war room that just blew my mind. We did benchmarking. We did all those things because those are the things that you have to do to invest in your own learning so that you can teach your own people. And we were so privileged with Vector Aerospace to be able to invest in lean maturity the way that we did. And we, of course, our business results made us so attractive, and we spent time under Airbus ownership, and then we became, part of the Standard Aero family. But it was a really, really empowering time in my career. I had to learn what TPM was. I had to learn, just in time. I had to learn every employee engagement. I had to learn every aspect and the whole leadership coaching and how do you actually develop a culture of improvement. It was a huge privilege to get to do all that learning.